All right, you all know who we are. I don't think we need any introductions. We got introduced twice already. So this we've talked a lot about energy efficiency and how to make our systems more energy efficient and optimized. And we don't want to take away from the fact that radon is always our first concern, but we can do better than what as an industry than what we do. And this is a little bit bigger building than what we've been talking about, and some of the challenges that come along with that, and in trying to do that and trying to optimize a system that's a little bit bigger. So this is a 6-story multifamily building. You can see radon levels go somewhere from 65 down to 2.5, and those are right next door to each other. Kind of interesting. Slab on grade, approximately a 75 by 75 footprint. There's all kinds of water and power lines under this slab. And so I got to talking to the folks that own the building, and I said we can put stacks either on the outside of each of the units or through the units. But they said, well, and then we got to talking about this little inside place, and we're like, well, we don't know if we can make it to there. And they're like, well, we don't really want to do that anyway. We'd like for you to run the exhaust pipes up through this old trash chute that's not used anymore, all completely sealed off. And I said, okay, well, we can do diagnostics based on that and design a system around that. But that means that we might either have to have suction points, pipes running through the hallways where you're going to see them all the time, or we might have to use some really big fans. And as I got into doing some diagnostics on this, this isn't these radiuses are not 100% true exact radiuses, but similar, something like this. So this first inner circle is when I put 4 inches of suction on this diagnostic suction point, we got about this inner circle of influence. And when I put 20 inches, and just by the way, that radius is about 15 feet. When we put 20 inches of suction, that would be kind of a mid-range commercial fan. We get about between 20 and 25 feet of influence. When we put 56 inches of suction, that would be bigger than most commercial radon fans that are common. We get about 30 feet of influence. So I was like, okay, we could put a couple suction points in this room and conceivably get to most of this building with a couple of commercial radon fans. But I didn't really, from my diagnostics, I didn't like our chances of making that work. Not to mention that those fans use a lot of energy. And so they use a lot of energy. So the operational cost was going to be fairly high. The noise level is going to be higher. So I said, what if we just cut trenches down the hallways in this building? So down this hallway, and this is in the middle of doing that. And it was a mess. We actually contained the mess really, really well, but you can't take care of it.
Like
What's that?
it sure looks like it.
I guess the mess was containing the mess, like actually taking the time to make sure that it wasn't a total disaster when we got done. So we were able to do this in one day. We cut trenches in, we put drain tile in the trench, and when we got done, our radon systems we had 2 suction points in here in this little unfinished room. We had trenches going down both hallways and drain tiles sticking into underneath each of the rooms. And we had great pressure field extension, just like we had predicted based on our original diagnostics. we ended up with two high flow residential, high flow, high pressure kind of combination residential radon fans, the variable speed kinds that we've been talking about a little bit. And so for about 300 watts and fairly quiet systems, we were able to fix this fairly large footprint with fairly tight soils. And so it was a pretty big win. We were able to use a trash chute like they wanted us to, and we were able to get the radon levels down. So I don't think I have post mitigation levels on this slide, but everything was well below 2 when we were done. Clients were super happy. Operation costs are reasonable, and got the job done the way we would like to get it done.
So question then for you. Clearly the stitching is labor intensive and costly, but
Yes.
versus the cost of the commercial grade fans and the wattage and the electrical costs going along with that, how long is this system going to take to pay for itself?
I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but it was fairly quick. It was like less than 5 years. And so presenting that to the clients and saying, yeah, we can make this work. You don't have to have pipes going. We don't have to have visible pipes. You don't have to have the commercial radon fans that are going to overtime. You're going to keep incurring costs over time. It was an easy sell. They said, yeah, it's going to be a mess in this building for 2 days. We know who you are. We've worked with you before. We know that you're going to do a good job, keep things clean and get it cleaned up quick. Allow our residents to get in and out, and while you're in that process, and it worked out. It worked out really well.
Awesome.
All right, I'll let it go back to you there, Josh.
All right, here we go. So it's actually a really good segue hearing Dr. Che talk about his depressurizing tunnels, because that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. So earlier this year, I was called out to a school, and it started off as any other day would in my experience, and that's watching the St. Mary referee fights between two delivery vendors showing up at the same exact time. So it was kind of a fun day. Here's the situation at this school. We had a lot of rooms with elevated radon, and this was done by a licensed individual during the proper time of year. And there's actually 3 pockets of elevated radon. So we've got one up here called stage 1, one here at stage 2, which I'll talk about at a different time, and then over here at stage 3, which doesn't really need much discussion, frankly. And then a new addition over here, that those radon numbers were actually really low. This is very atypical for what we see in Minnesota, where you have most of the building being hot versus a little part being fine. HVAC controls radon in 95% of Minnesota schools. So it was really kind of a different thing. And this was an aging building, fallen out of maintenance, private school that may not really have a whole lot of resources to fix these kinds of things. The radon numbers up in this area in stage 1, that's where they were most worried about to start. So that's where we started. When you start looking at radon in clusters and buildings, you have to start to figure out, hey, why is it clustered here? What's going on? What's unique about, or what does each one of these rooms have in common? And in this particular case, they were all located above a tunnel system. And the tunnel system was somewhere between 3 feet tall and 6 feet tall. It was dirty. It was kind of gross, but it was 96 or some odd feet across up here and almost 70 feet down. And it was a complete tunnel loop. So I was like, well, instead of doing diagnostics in every single one of these rooms, what if we, and the radon was hot everywhere. So, and as you can see, there's the underside of the floor is the corrugated metal. So there's air leaks all along here. And there's 2 to 4, there's actually 4 penetrations from this tunnel into each classroom, coming from the boiler heat for the hot water baseboard heat in every room. So we're like, all right, there's a ton of air leaks down in here, but what happens if we just depressurize this tunnel see what happens. So that's what we did. We went to the tunnel entrance here and there was a louver here. We removed it and put a piece of plywood on. 6-inch flex, 6-inch pipe out the window of the art room. Here's the layout of what we had. So this was the easiest temporary system out. We had the fan outside and we just blew it out into the parking lot. We did no sealing of the openings into any of the classrooms. So there was a lot of them. You had 1.5 inch steel pipe going up through the corrugated metal, but the corrugated metal had a hole of about 3 inches. So you had an additional 1.5 inches around each penetration. So there's a bunch of air leaks. We delivered 320 CFM to get -5 pascals everywhere that we measured. So we had 5 pascals in this corner, and in this corner, and in this corner, and in this corner. And we retested over the weekend, and the radon in every room was less than 1. Great. We went from 11s, 10s, and 11s down to 1. Great. We now established what can work for this school. So now to optimize this system, figuring that we don't need 325 CFM, we went with 4-inch pipe, and we ended up we dug down on the outside of the building, cored through the subfloor or the wall to get into the tunnel. And we started with a large adjustable speed fan. And then we gradually sealed the openings in the tunnel connected to the classrooms. And then we repeated the diagnostic numbers as we went along. So this was the original no sealing of the openings in the slab, a large adjustable speed fan set at 75%. 240 CFM is what it took to get us 3 pascals negative everywhere. And it's rocking 120 watts. So obviously there's some costs there. So, all right. What happens then if we seal all of them? We gain 5 pascals of negative pressure everywhere by sealing the openings into the classrooms. We're still at 240 CFM, and that's coming from the building somewhere. Certain about that. So start to dial it down. But just for grins, what do we get at max? We're up to almost 10. 10 pascals everywhere is more than we need. So we got the 10 numbers at max, and we dial it down from there, down to 50%. We're at 4.5 pascals everywhere. Still kicking butt, moving half the air and way less wattage. I don't even need -4.6. So now we cut it down to 40%, still winning. And this whole time I'm running the exhaust fans where I can to try to put the building under more negative pressure, still winning the game. This radon system, this temp system, or the non-temp system is kicking butt. We're down to 15 watts at 110 CFM. Well, with the large adjustable speed fan, you can't go much less than, say, 30%. So we stopped at 40 and said, well, what does the smaller adjustable speed fan get us? So we swapped it out. This is the smaller adjustable speed fan at 100%, 165 CFM, 55 watts, winning the game. Dial it down, 80%, winning the game. Dial it down some more, 55%. 65 CFM is still pulling this off. So I'm confident at the negative pressures that I'm seeing in the tunnel or the classroom compared to the tunnel, I'm confident that we're going to win this game. And we are now at 65 CFM and 10 watts. 10 watts. We were over 100 earlier. So what does that all mean? Here's a table showing what each one of those prior scenarios had. When we did no sealing and we had our temporary system just going gangbusters, if we install the system based on those specs, it's going to cost about $1,800 a year to operate and $18,000 over its rough lifetime span. But if we do sealing and we adjust these airflows down, and by the way, I'll just say this, while we're talking about adjustable speed fans, you can accomplish a lot of the same energy savings by just throttling down with a gate valve your airflows. The more airflow going through the fan, the more electricity you're using. If you cut that down and you move it from the high airflow to a higher suction situation, you'll save energy and you'll take less air out of the building. So what Chad and I really do is we do both. So now if you look at all this, you can bring it down to 30% and have everything sealed. We're at 6 watts of power and we're still kicking butt everywhere. The problem is I can't go any lower than, say, 30%. The fan just turns off. So that's the lower limit of this particular setup. I would love to be down here, but just by doing some sealing and adjusting some of the airflow, we cut the airflow by almost, well, about 80 CFM. We save almost $5,000 over the life of the fan. We don't even need this much power. We're really down in this range. So we could save that school 12,000 bucks just by dialing down the airflow. Okay, well, what about the smaller fan? The smaller fan had even larger savings. Down in the 55 watt to 30 watt, our airflow from the building is much less. With the smaller fan, I'm at 55%. So I've got some room to decrease even more if I really wanted to. If I find in the wintertime that I don't need that much negative pressure, we can go out there and adjust it and still win the game and save even more money. So the end all here is look at this number and this number, 14,000, let's call it $15,000 over the life of the system. That's hard cash that the school is saving by not using a typical setup that's not optimized. If we simply optimize these systems, we're going to save a ton of money and still bring radon down as low as reasonably achievable. So this can be mind-numbing numbers, tens of thousands of dollars. And we as an industry can make that happen. So there you have it.
I just let you run with that because, yeah, you.
We're over time, but we couldn't possibly cut Dr. Phil off, right?
Right, exactly. And so I couldn't butt in because I knew you were running long and I wanted you to get to the end. So good job. That's very good information. So I think we're out of here.
It was great.
Well, we didn't want to cut you guys off either. So were there anything in Q&A or chat that you wanted to address right here?
Yeah, so Nate asked, or he mentioned that we probably reduced the humidity load on that building that I was talking about, and that's true. We didn't do any measurements on that, what the amount of moisture was coming out of the stack or anything like that. And typically I don't make claims about being a humidity reduction expert because typically we can't move a lot of air in our soils. And so we're really not going to move a lot of humidity out of the ground.
Here's a question from Kurt Drew. Maybe I'm not understanding these tunnels. Are you taking the air from unconditioned space? Will that impact energy? Same question.
Sorry, who was that from? Or can you repeat it? I didn't catch it, Aldrin.
Sure, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not understanding these tunnels. Aren't you taking the air from unconditioned space? Will that impact your energy impact?
Well, technically the crawl space or the tunnels may not be conditioned themselves, but the air that's coming in to make up for that lost air would be conditioned. And so putting a weather tight door on the entrance of that tunnel and doing all the sealing inside inside the tunnels, that cuts down the amount of airflow that you would have coming from the building.
Okay, one last one. So commercial/industrial fans are not always used in these type of settings?
That is correct. And
That's right, Jerry. You don't always need them.
That might be a question that for continuing ed. I can't remember what our questions were, but seems like it.
Thor Weeby. Hey, greetings from Marshall and Thor. Thor asked, what did you use to do the ceiling? Spray foam. Spray foam from underneath. And a lot of it, frankly.
Did you carry a fire extinguisher with you as you were doing that?
I got to be honest, it wasn't me doing the work. It was
Okay.
a licensed and certified friend of yours that did all this work.
Yes, I do. I'm familiar with him, and he does do good work. So, okay, is that all, Jane?
Yeah. I'd say it's a wrap, gentlemen.
All right.
Everyone, this is the close of the 2020 live virtual symposium. Thank you all for being here with us. I know VaporPin has a meetup and a happy hour. AARST has a happy hour, and we are all happy to conclude this part of our symposium. Dawn?
Thank you, everyone. It has been a crazy event, and appreciate everybody hanging in there with us, and hopefully you view it as a success, such as we do. So thank you, everyone. And we look forward to hopefully seeing everybody in person next year.
Hey, one last thing, Don, Dallas, Jane, Nicole, everyone else's names that I've already forgotten. On behalf of the states and tribes that are your guys' partners, thanks for keep hosting this virtually. It was way different than ever, but it was great. It was great to see everyone. Great job under the circumstances. So just fantastic. Enjoy yourselves. You did a great job.